This video is being made l'schus Shena Freda Bas Tamar Bela, that she should have a Yeshua and a bracha and a tzlocha. This week is Parashat Vayikra. In our parsha and in the Chumash of Vayikra in general, we speak about the Ovadia Antian, how we brought animal sacrifices in the Holy Temple. And that's one of the most important and one of the main things that we did in the Mishkan and also in the Beis HaMikdash, in the Holy Temple. What was the first korban that was brought every day? The first animal sacrifice that was brought is called korban tamid. The word tamid means constant. And the reason why we call it constant is because you have on every weekday of the year, as well as on Shabbos, as well as on Yom Kippur, Yom Tov, every day of the year, you brought a korban tamid. That's why it's called tamid, it's constant. And it was brought every morning, right in the beginning of the day. And it was also brought right at the end of the day, before the end of the day, before sunset. We'd have what's called the korban tamid, the second one. So it's a sheep in the morning and a sheep in the evening, right before sunset. The korban tamid teaches us, because in general, everything that we have in the Beis HaMikdash teaches us about how we need to serve Hashem. So the word korban, which means animal sacrifice, but it also comes from the same source of the word karav, close, which means it teaches us how we also need to get close to Hashem. And what this constant korban tamid that we bring every morning and every evening teaches us is that every Jew, what Hashem wants from us is that He wants us, He's not asking for us to bring everything that we have to the Beis HaMikdash. And this is really one of the things that we learn from the korban tamid. What's the whole korban tamid? What is it? You're just bringing one sheep, a small amount of oil, a small amount of wine, a small amount of flour, and a small amount of salt. And the reason why we bring from all of these different kinds is because we're actually elevating all of the parts of creation. We're elevating the animal life, which is the sheep, also plant life, which is the wine, the flour, and the oil, and also still matter, which is the salt. So the korban tamid is what's called a korban tzibur. It's a korban that's brought by the whole Jewish people collectively. Like, for example, if someone has a certain sin that he needs to bring a sin offering for, that's called a korban chatas, that he brings personally from his own funds. But this constant korban that was brought on the mizbeach in the altar in the Holy Temple every morning and every evening, it was brought from the funds of all of the Jewish people together. When we brought the machzis a shekel, when we each donate a half a shekel, you aggregated all of that together, and it was used for the korbanos. And it was a small amount of money, half a shekel. And it turns out, therefore, that each of us is really bringing a very, very small amount to the Beis HaMikdash, because even when you look every day at that korban that's being brought, your part in it is a very, very small fraction from the machzis shekel that you gave. Even so, you have become a partner to Hashem by doing this donation every day, and by the korban coming from your donation that you made that once a year, it's actually having a lasting effect every day. So what we learn from this korban is that Hashem does not necessarily require from us to give everything that we have and not leave anything over for ourselves. Meaning that the importance in doing a mitzvah is not measured only in the quantity, how much you gave to charity, for example. How much energy did you insert? Did you insert all of your energy? Or how much money you donated? The important thing is how you give and how you bring your korban. How do you give what's yours to Hashem? And being that Hashem only is requesting from us to do small amounts, but to do them with the whole heart. For example, with energy, with happiness, with passion. And like the korban tamid, which is only made up of small things, one sheep, a little bit of flour, etc. And every Jew's portion in it, fraction, is very, very small. But when we all put our energy together, then we're doing it from our whole heart, and we get the brachas of Hashem. Another thing that we learn from the korban tamid, it's not given during the entire day. It's brought up to the altar just in the morning, and then again in the evening. It's brought just one time, very early in the morning, and the second time before evening, just at the end of the day. It happens during a small portion of the day. But that also teaches us that when we start our day by getting close to Hashem and giving ourselves over to Hashem, then the korban is not limited just for that portion and time in the day when we do it, but it becomes a constant carbon, which is another reason why it's called a carbon tamid, a constant carbon, because it actually, even though it happens only during a small part of the day, the effect of it is lasting throughout the whole day and it influences the whole day. And that teaches us also how we should run our everyday. When we open up our eyes in the morning after sleeping, and the first thing that we do is we put our hand together, we lower our head, bow to Hashem, and say, Modeh ani lefanecha, I thank you, Hashem. Melech Chai v'Kaim, living King. Shechazarta b'nishmasi, you brought back my neshama in me. B'chemla, with compassion. Rabba amonasecha, our faith in you is great. When we start the day with giving ourselves over to Hashem and thanking Hashem, and that's how we start our day, even though it's just a very, very small minute of saying those words, we're actually giving ourselves over completely to God. And when we start our day like that, then our behavior during the entire day, tamid, constant, is going to be in a way of carbon, in a way of sacrifice, which means bringing ourselves close and giving ourselves over completely to Hashem. Our whole day is influenced with this giving of ourselves over to Hashem.